Been walking through the Navy Exchange and wonder why all the Naval Pride and Heritage gear is horrifically ugly and you wouldn't actually wear it. Have you ever wanted some really cool gear and you just don't know where to go? Well, I got you, fam. Go to dgutspodcast.com immediately. Get yourself some Naval Pride and Heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. We're working on new designs all the time, open to ideas. We're trying to create a brand that lets you display that pride, but doesn't make you cringe. Also, if you're willing to and you're able to, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast, pick one of the 5 tiers and become a patron today. What's up, everybody? Let's spin some yarn. So we got another memo to go over. I'm going to do that this morning, this disrespectful hour. Shout out to Alexis Travis for making me wake up early for no reason. I'm kidding. Sort of. I say early. I got up at 10 a.m. It's just, I have sleep issues. Leave me alone. So I'm a little my brain's, it's mostly on. Like, there's a couple auxiliary systems still warming up, but I took some notes on this character memo just now, and we're going to dive into this one. This one's kind of more of the same. Not nothing, but I don't think anything in here is going to get me super lit like I have on some of these other ones, but it's just more of the same. It's vague and not much action. It's just very, it's like, I got to fit this in one page. You know what I mean? Like, it's more of the same formula, I guess. So the first issue that I have with it, and I mentioned this in the last episode, the last one in the series of where I went through the general memo with the message to all chief petty officers, is the first line contradicts one of his previous memos, where it's talking about technical expertise is I think it was warfighting competency. It's like technical expertise is the number one priority. And on the podcast before, I've talked a bunch about, like, if everything's the priority, nothing's the priority. And we operate at that, with that in mind, like, and that is like a way in which we conduct ourselves as an entire organization, as Big Navy, all the time, right? Where everybody's thing is the number one priority. So nothing's the priority. So nothing gets done in the manner or on the timeline that everybody wants it to get done, and then everybody's pissed off, right? And then all the people that were supposed to be doing these things are dirtbags, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just a recipe for inefficiency. There's your cook fund for the day. You're welcome. You can't have it both ways or all the ways simultaneously. Like, that's not a real thing. That's why I always say leadership development and education is the number one priority, because it will objectively improve all of these other areas and make like a huge objective quality increase in all of these areas that everybody wants to be the number one priority, because they're not performing at the level they need to be. But if they were, those people wouldn't be on fire, or those organizations wouldn't be on fire about those things all being the number one priority, because they don't need to be. They just need to be working. They just need to be getting accomplished in a timely manner. And it's not like think like capitalist civilian industry. It's not like you got to report to your shareholders that we're continually making more profit every quarter. It's like, no, like all this government bureaucracy cares about is the thing getting done, so that my superior isn't poking me about the thing getting done. If I can report not only is the thing getting done, but it's getting done within or slightly ahead of the projected timeline, we're winning, and everybody shuts up. And I've seen this happen when the organization, like, and this is, smaller level, right? Like a unit organization has a timeline and it's outside of the it's directed by agencies outside of the organization. But like, think about like you're in an availability, right? You're doing a maintenance period on a ship or a submarine or whatever. So it's not just you, right? It's like your unit has a timeline, but that timeline is dictated by the maintenance facility. It's dictated by the operational schedule of all the other units that are effectively like filling your slot while you're out getting this maintenance done. And it's the whole maintenance schedule it interrelies on each other, right? Like you have this much time in the dry dock so that the next person can get in, the next ship can get into the dry dock, kind of thing. And even then, it's like with all those organizations working together and everybody has all the priorities and all those things, it's like it's usually a shit show, but when it's ahead of schedule somehow or on time, everybody's happy. Nobody's like, well, we can do it faster. You know what I mean? Except maybe the unit CO, they like sometimes they get a little overzealous and want to go to sea faster or something to try to like look good or whatever. But I feel like that's rare. Most of the time they're happy to just report up that, hey, we're doing better than we're supposed to be doing. And, you know, and that's winning. And they just move on to the other thing because they have so many things. And I feel like that's kind of how the naval organism functions, like the whole thing all together, right? It's like, yeah, it's got so many things to worry about. It's like if that one priority is being met, it's just going to move on to the next thing. It's not going to just continually move the goalposts. And you may have experienced something like where they continually move the goalposts as far as timeline, like where, you know, like you can do it that fast. Okay, do it faster. But I feel like that's rare. I could be wrong about that. I'm always open to feedback, but I feel like if you do it this way, you'd be doing well. But here we are in a memo declaring to the whole Chiefs mess that, hey, remember that thing I said was the number one priority? This other thing is also the number one priority, because it legitimately says character is equally important. Well, then it's not the number one priority. You can't have two number one priorities. That's not how numbers work. Like, so that was my facepalm moment for this one. I think just kind of chuckled to myself, like, of course, you know, like, cause it's nice. I was in a really small way, but I was like, oh great, we're saying something's the number one priority. Like, and there's some naivete there, obviously, like the thinking like that it wasn't going to come back around, where that now another thing is the number one priority and there's 2 more memos to go. So maybe like 5 things will be the number one priority by the time we're done. But yeah, this was my like, it started off just with like a punch in the face. So it's my expectation that personal character development and technical proficiency be the 2 attributes we seek in order to advance our culture within the Chiefs Mess. So it's like, and that's what, it's very confusing that you'd even start off this way, because the memo subject is character. And he starts off by saying technical competency. And it's like, well, I thought this was about character. And then the whole first paragraph is about how character is just as important as technical competency. It's like, what? Why are we talking about technical competency? But, you know, here we are. So it talks about Chiefs developing character, and that you can develop and measure character. But it doesn't say how. Typical of these memos, right? Like how do you, I would love to hear this. And I know there are subjective mechanisms in psychology. Like the more I learn in school, the more it's like they have tests for everything, whether or not you accomplish an objective measurement, like a definitive, this is what this means type of measurement or result based on, you know, an aggregate of data. It's pretty rare. Like they infer a lot of things, right? So like with this, it's like if you're measuring character, and I'm not saying there's no value to those subjective tests at all, like, because you can infer things and it kind of like nudges you in a direction that seems right, but like it doesn't mean it is right. It means you think it's right. It's like the most right or the closest to right, right? That's a lot of rights in one sentence, Jesus. So it's, how are we measuring character development? Like how? Tell me how. Like, how am I developing character? One, because like I would love to see that explained. Is like how are Chiefs developing character? How's the organization developing character? And then I'm not saying we're not doing it. I just like how. Tell me how. And then also, how are we measuring it? Developing character, I feel like would be less of a tall ask than the measurement mechanism. Like, how are you doing that? I would love to know, because if you're measuring it and then you get red flags on certain people, like, then what? How are we remediating that? Are we removing people from positions? Like, what are we doing? I would really love to know, because I don't. Character's one of those. It's like a black hole. It's one of those words that can mean like 100 different things. And everybody's got their own interpretation of what it means. It's not like when you ask a sailor what integrity means. Oh, do the right thing when no one's looking. Like, it's not one of those. Character's a very, like, it can mean so many different things, and it pulls from a lot of different words, like the meanings of a lot of different words, like integrity, honesty, like authenticity, personality. Like, there's just all these things that people will pull from in their own definitions of character. But I bet you if you ask people to define character, you're going to get a lot of different answers. So that's why it's like, okay, well, how do we define it? What does it mean to the organization? Because that's really what matters. You're the one training on it and measuring it, apparently. So what is it? How does it work? Like, how are we developing it? How are we measuring it? I don't know. It doesn't say. And then it starts to give this, what they would probably point at as a definition for them. It starts to give this really vague word salad. There's two different paragraphs just that are very vague word salad type contexts. I'm not even going to call it a definition, because it's not that. It's like their attempt at a context, but it's this very like floating in the ether of like leadership development and stuff that sounds nice around the word character. I don't know. It's a very word salad-y paragraph. That's the only, I keep coming back to that idea. I should have called all these episodes word salad. They show empathy and are authentic in how they lead. They foster and invite. It's talking about chiefs in relation to character, sort of, but not really. They foster an environment of respect, coaching, encouragement, continuous learning, and self-motivation. They have the courage to be honest, humble, and transparent about it. It's like, this is all stuff that seems to just be general stuff written about what they think a chief should be, but not like a very clearly defined ethos for a chief. Also, I thought we were just talking about character in this memo, which I know you got to like provide some context for, but this is just like, it sounds like a pinning script. Just like the same criticism I have of the Creed. Like, this sounds like a pinning script. Like, you're talking to these selectees that are about to get their anchors pinned on. And I'm just like, what? Why? What are we doing? Like, what? This is why a one-page memo doesn't work. You're trying to cram in everything that you feel about chief petty officers, about what they should be, about what the ideal is. And it's like, this isn't the place for that. We're talking about character. So talk about character and what it means to a chief. And I feel like that's what they thought they accomplished here. I don't see it. Like this, to me, this is just word salad. They are their own toughest critic and setting a personal example, and they hold themselves accountable as well. It's like all this, just like we trying to build up this superhero version of a chief in your mind, and just writing down a bunch of stuff that you think would be attributes of that, superhero cape wearing chief, right? It's like, I don't see the value in this. Chiefs of character are empowered by their leadership role and take action. So, I put it's his expectation, not a plan. Where's the action? Which I'm going to get to some stuff at the end. Just stay tuned. That's more positive. Some signs of life. MCPON said some stuff. They got, somebody sent me I forget what it was linked, and there's like a military.com article that had some stuff about the MCPON's kind of like some vague statements or like ideas about his criticisms and plans for the Chiefs season going forward. So, which are a lot of which align with how I think about it, which I was very encouraged by. It seems like once they get to that level, they start to, or probably lower levels, probably like, like force or even like the flag level, be on their way up to the MCPON office, they start to like, what are we doing? Like this isn't the best way to do this. So that stuff will come at the end though. So it's like, there is no action, there is no plan, there is no policy. And what's frustrating to me is like, why? Like, why isn't there a policy document? And even just like, I would not even settle, I'd still be bitching about it, but like, to the surprise of absolutely no one. But like, start with a policy document that is this, but like gives you more room to organize it formally and break it down, and just gives you more words so that you don't have to try to cram it all into one place. You can like have sections on all these things, right? And what I'd really love to see, pie in the sky, right? Revise the creed, however you want to do that. I'm not saying you got to use my revision or any part of it. Just revise it to be an actual like mission statement or ethos, or just a creed, like a statement of who we are and what we do definitively. And then revise or go forward with the mission, vision, and guiding principles as written. One of the two. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and really think about it. When I look at the mission, vision, guiding principles, I'm pretty happy with it. Like I like that document. It looks like it got tweaked recently, but like I've liked it since I think Campa released those. Like I've liked it the whole time. Like it's what's on our eval. Like it's good. It probably could be better, but like I don't have any like overt criticism for it really. But maybe if I sat down and like really thought on it, maybe. But it's the thing I point at as the best. Like it's the best Chief Petty Officer source document that we have. So start with those things, and then if you're happy there, right, which I think the creed needs to just get lit on fire and redone, but the mission, vision, guiding principles, pretty good. Like maybe tweak it, maybe not, whatever. Go forward with those things once that's done, and write the policy document, whatever it is, like an op-nav instruction or whatever, based on those things. Like that's your framework, right? So then you have like sections that you can do on deck plate leadership, all the like work your way through, have character, whatever you want to put in there, like, because you can revise the mission, vision, guiding principles. So if you want it to be character, and then I think connectedness and something else are the other, I forget the other two memo subjects. Apparently they sent them to the military.com writers for that article, but they're not actually released to Gen Pop yet. So you can put those in there if you want those in the mission, vision, guiding principles. Cool. If you want to just include those as part your priorities and the mission, vision, guiding principles, whatever. But like there needs to be a policy document governing how we build chiefs. And I'm not even going to say the chief season, because I think it needs to be. I think the policy document needs to capture more than just initiation season, which I don't think should be called initiation season, by the way. I was really disappointed when they brought that back. I think that was Giordano, but like, this is my shocked face. So I think the policy document needs to like build that framework of like, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we are going to build chiefs for the future. And here's all the mechanisms. And you can reference the Naval Leadership Development Continuum document and like laying the keel and whatever the hell other source documents you want to, and just say like, hey, we have all these things along the way, right? But also these are the things that we expect to happen before selection. And then the meat and potatoes of it would be like, this is what the expectations for initiation. And that maybe even like a bunch of templates as enclosures for like, here's your pinning script, here's your master course document for the chief season event, which if you don't know what a master course document is, look it up. Every single formally developed like class or curriculum or whatever in the Navy that you can find like a CANTRAC number for has a master course document, right? And the master course document is like, these are the training objectives. This is how many hours are allotted for the course's delivery. This is like a lot of the points that should be made. This is things the instructor should be saying. And then you have like an instructor guide where the instructor goes through and like marks everything up and blah, blah. Well, the master course document isn't that. I started to bleed over into the instructor guide, but you know, like I said, I'm not all the way awake yet. But then there's an instructor guide where the instructor has like the thing, which you've seen for like teaching of the creed. There's instructor guides, and then there's the PowerPoint slide deck thing. So the instructor guide is the thing the facilitator marks up and writes down, okay, I'm going to tell a C story here, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, right? Highlight this point, or bring up this story, or relate it to our warfare community or platform or whatever. At this point and that point, yeah, like you have some leeway in how you're going to facilitate or deliver it or whatever. But there's a very formal and policy-driven set of training objectives and guidelines, like rules, really, not guide. I mean, they're not suggestions. They're like, these are the things that thou shalt do. And so like, that's what needs to happen. You can't just do this stuff willy-nilly. Like I had a select tell me yesterday, I think they messaged me and said, they're not like, it came down from wherever, the ivory tower somewhere, that, that their mess is not to call each other genuines anymore. And it's like, I've been hearing that for 5 years. I mean, like before I retired, 5 years. So like now it's like 6 years. And I still see it happening. I still see people wearing chief shirts that say genuine on it. So it's like, and it's because there's no policy against it. There's just somebody said something in an email. And it got trickled down some places, but not others. Some people decided to do it. Some people didn't. Maybe some people didn't get the email. You can't. And it's so counterintuitive to me that so much of the Chiefs season is built this way. The whole organization is built around like policy, procedure, formality. Like I can get you a procedure for a peanut butter and jelly. So what the fuck, man? Like, why do we not have a formal policy for this? It's too important. And it's like for so many years, there's been like CNO after CNO after CNO going, you better rein this in, MCPON, or we're going to take your toys away. You know, and it's like, how is there not a policy document? And then you can start holding these clowns accountable that end up on the cover of the Navy Times because their season is the one that got everybody shut down for a safety stand down. And they're the ones getting us negative press and making us look bad and compromising, the character of the Chiefs mess as a whole. Like, I don't know. It drives me absolutely nuts that there's not formal policy behind this, but I went off on a bit of a tangent there. So, also like reading these word salad paragraphs, I wrote down like, who the fuck are these Chiefs? Like, we're in fantasy land if you think this is what chief petty officers are. If you like, this is an ideal that you want to strive for, cool, but you didn't say that. And you kind of imply it as like, this is what we're striving for. But again, like, this isn't who we are. It's like you have to start at the foundation where all the rot is. Like the creed and the mission, vision, guiding principles, and then a policy document, and then build from there. It's like, this is like an accoutrement. This is just something to accentuate the work you've already done, but you haven't done it. So that's why this misses for me. And I think for many, based on the response to all these podcasts that I'm doing, it's like, you skipped so many steps. And so this isn't landing like you intended it. And again, like I always caveat, it's like, there are good chiefs out there, but they're anomalies. The organization is not built on this ideal, and it should be. And I agree with that idea. I just don't think this is the way to get there, like at all. Like, I don't think this is going to do much, if any, good, because you skipped all those other steps. Yeah, it goes into more like chiefs of character empowered by their leadership role and take action. They They have the courage to stand up for what is right, even if there are personal consequences. And then it goes on with more word salad. But the chiefs of character are empowered by their leadership role and take action. There was this, I shared it on the Facebook page because there's not you had to like screenshot it and shit to share it the way that I want to on Instagram, but because I want there to be like a link and stuff, but whatever. There's probably a way, and I just don't know how. But it's an article on moral humility, which had a TED Talk, or it was a TED Talk. It wasn't an article. God, the TED Talk, in it, the speaker says, and I don't know if this is a perfect quote, but it's close. It basically said, if you want to evaluate or test someone's character, give them power. Like, there's not another good test, right? And I'm not trying to like finish the MCPON's homework for him. Like, this is not when I was like, how do you measure character earlier? Like, this isn't the answer to the test necessarily, but it's if you absolutely have to know, this is a way to do it, right? And what you see happen quite a bit is these things going off the rails because of a lack of moral humility. And I'm going to do a Foundations episode on moral humility. It's a really, really great topic to talk about, particularly in relation to the Chiefs mess and the wardroom, really. But in like when we're talking about this, it's like we're giving these people power before they're ready to wield it, and it's like there's no real guide rails there. So it's like that's why you see so many of the problems that you do. Like it's why the Chiefs season has so many issues. That's why messes have so many issues. That's why selectees have such a bad taste in their mouth about the Chiefs season. And I feel like it feels like that's starting to increase. The more selectees that I interact with every year, the more and more frustrated and like vocal they are about that frustration. I don't, and again, I'm going to do an episode on it, so I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole on the moral humility topic, but there's just so much of the leadership that is attempted by the mess, I feel like, is compromised by a lack of moral humility. So you give people power without the tools to responsibly wield it for good and not evil, you know, like it's the kind of the place we arrive at, the unforeseen consequences and the wreckage that's left behind due to the irresponsible wielding of that power is evident. And I don't think it's surprising. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just going to fast forward to the end here as far as like, because a lot of my comments say the same thing. It's like, it sounds nice, but it's vague, directionless, and frustrating. Like, the whole memo, this memo is very much like the majority of it is just like, it's just a bunch of word salad and it's vague and there's no action or plan or anything. Again, I did say, and I want to make sure we talk about this, there are signs of life. Like I have plenty of criticism for the MCPON, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And it's not, again, like I'm sure he's a great dude. I'm sure he has, especially because of some of the things he's saying in these memos, even though I have plenty of criticism to send his way on these. And then that military.com article that I'll get to, it's like the office and the leadership mess and all the people that are involved in this, it's like, I'm sure I'm not like telling them anything they don't already know generally, hopefully. I mean, I hope that's true. And And I know his heart's in the right place. I know their hearts are in the right place. I think 99.9% of these people want nothing but the best for the enlisted force, the organization, blah, 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 right? I just don't think this is the way to do it. The mandatory conversations could be interesting. I am still skeptical because they're not guided by policy or facilitated by experts that are outside of the organization. But because I have hope for two reasons in this regard, albeit minimal, it's like the topic, the subject is good. The general premise is very good, and I'm glad that it is the general premise. And based on what is admittedly my anecdotal experience with these, we'll call it, and it's probably an intellectually lazy term, but like the new generation of chief selects, like in the last few years, they're so much smarter than we were. They have access to so much more information. I think there's a lot more self-improvement happening in earnest, where they're reading books on leadership and psychology and just all these, listening to podcasts, doing all the things that we didn't do coming up. Not that plenty of leaders read and have for a long time, but not enough, but like plenty do. But there's all these other mechanisms that make everything so much more digestible and accessible, right? Like the internet is everywhere, right? You can listen to audiobooks and podcasts while you're running, while you're doing yard work, while you're driving to and from work, which is what a lot of people do with this podcast. They have so much more access to information and just understanding of things that we didn't at the stage in our development that we were as board eligible first classes that were selected to chief, that I think if chiefs, we facilitate an environment where they're comfortable speaking up, which is usually not the vibe in chiefs training for selectees, like chief select training, which is presumably when these conversations are going to take place. Like, even though I know it says in the memo not to do it that way. If you facilitate an open and honest conversation and they're made to feel like they can use their voice, which, I mean, there are a certain number of them. Like, I know a few that don't care, like that will just say it anyway out loud, but most won't. And so if it's an environment that's facilitated in a way that these selectees are told and made to feel that they can say what they actually think without fear of any kind of reprisal, or consequences, I think you could have a really great conversation. And I think that the chiefs in that room might learn something from these selectees for the reasons that I just laid out. Like the question they always like, that, what do you bring to the mess? Which doesn't really have an answer. Like, they bring themselves, their context and experience, because duh. But like, there's not, they always like act like it's like the answer is just this like thing that you don't understand, but it's a trick question. They're just you're always wrong no matter how you answer it. It's so stupid. But that's what they bring that. And I don't think that the chiefs, the current chiefs, most of them, I mean, there's a small minority that are part of this generation that already went through everything and are in the mess. Right. But I don't think a lot of the old salts recognize this untapped resource. Like, they are bringing with them a ton of knowledge and experience that either you didn't have at the time or you don't have at all currently. And they can bring that with them. Like Desiree, shout out to Desiree for sending me that dope TED Talk, is going to bring that understanding of moral humility with her. And like, I've never heard that term, and I've never heard it explained that way. And I study this shit. Like, look at the books and the fucking podcasts and YouTube videos. Like, I study leadership and psychology regularly. And I had never heard that term. I've heard the concept, the way that it was defined, I've heard that used in like a context, right? Like if you were born in Nazi Germany and during like that time frame, would you have been a sympathizer? Would you have been a full-on Nazi? Would you have been part of a resistance of some kind? And they have statistics because it's historical, right? That they can point at and be like, well, you say that everybody, of course, when asked that question modern times, oh, everybody's going to say yes, right? Pretty much. And of course that's not true, right? You could make a case that, if we're talking about time travel, then maybe, because we all have very different understandings. We have the benefit of retrospective thinking and all of the things that have happened since then, both academically and just historically. But so you could make an argument that the statistics would be different, that like more people would have the courage. But would they, right? Because like it's easy sitting in a classroom to say, oh, of course I would be part of the civil rights movement. Of course I would, right? It's easy to say that, but when you're in an environment where, go watch some of the videos from civil rights protests and marches and sit-ins and stuff like that. Like, it's easy to say that you agree and would participate in that movement, but then if you were actually able to like teleport into it, where people are like sicking dogs on you and shooting you with a fire hose and beating you with clubs because of your ideas and because of your willingness to vocalize them and stand up for what you believe is right, it's a different thing. You could lose your life. Nazi Germany, if you were part of a resistance, like your life's in danger the whole time. You're probably ostracized by people that you used to be close with. You're very isolated, and yeah, you're like in fear for your life constantly. That's a different thing to actually do it, right? And that's what that moral humility thing is. So that's the type of thinking that these selectees are bringing to the mess. Did you know that? Like, take the time to really tease that out. Like, be curious, ask those questions, and see what they have to say. Because these conversations that MCPON has mandated are a great opportunity to do that. And I think some of this stuff will blow your mind. So I'm hopeful that more people will take advantage of this opportunity being granted by the MCPON mandating something constructive. I wish he would do more of that, and I hope that's what's coming. And that kind of leads me into the military.com article. I'm going to try to bring it up real quick, but the gist of it is, or actually Ariana sent me this article, that somebody posted it in a Reddit thread, where it says the MCPON is trying to lessen the impact of CPO initiation among other mess reforms. And the article is linked as part of the post, right? And they're talking about hazing, which I don't know how much he talks about that piece of it. But they quoted some of the lines from some of his memos about organizational drift and mediocre leadership. And I thought that was interesting, but military.com actually interviewed him in his office, apparently. It says on Friday. This was published on the 29th of August, so I guess just this past Friday. And he explained that he wants to tackle counterfeit behaviors, which I thought was a great way of articulating what I was trying to say in the last podcast about the shift in energy and how Chiefs altered their behavior during the Chiefs season. This counterfeit behaviors line is money. I love that. I hope he weaponizes that in his reforming of the mess. And among his hopes is that the induction of new chief petty officers, which I love that they used induction, and I'm hoping that he plans to change the initiation term, because I just think that term should get deleted from our lexicon, except when you're like referring to a historical context, when you're reading a tradition of change. Like, that term should have got left in the fucking past. But, whatever. I hope he's deleting that. So he's talking about the induction of new chief petty officers become a far less onerous and time-consuming tradition. That's what I was just talking about last episode. So it's like the stress and the workload and the demands on not only chief selects, but chiefs and then the families of both, like, it needs to go. While Honey's efforts to change some aspects of chief traditions is not new, the fact that they are being done as part of a broader attempt to address the previously mentioned organizational drift and mediocre leadership shows how seriously the Navy's taking the problems. I don't know if I agree with that, but I hope that's true. He's talking about, so they mentioned some of the like controversy around suicide and like the tainted water thing, and how he promises to be an advocate. Like, of course he does. He does say the first year's focus has been about chief petty officers because I think we're the focal point and we're the ones, or they're the ones we're dependent on the most. I don't know if that's, I think that they, for better or worse, they have the largest impact on all the things that he's calling a priority, right? Like quality of life and warfighting competency, and I forget what the other one is. Like, the chiefs have the biggest impact on all those things. Like, if you can, again, going back to something I've said before, if you can make an objective 20% quality increase in enlisted leadership across the board, so many things would drastically improve, if not just be outright fixed, where the problem is completely eliminated. So you don't have to perfect chiefing. You don't have to make everybody this perfect leadership ideal. You just need an objective quality increase of, and 20% is an arbitrary number, but I'm just saying, I'm like, just imagine if, and purposely setting the bar kind of low. I mean, you could say 20% is a big increase, and I guess it is. It's a market increase for sure, but it's not like I'm sure if we were going to say, hey, we want to improve chiefs, I'd want to start at like 50% at least, right? Like, I want to set the bar higher, but I was purposely trying to set it low when I made that analogy. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff about like it goes through like a lot of the tradition of change history, like just kind of like summarizes it. But it says, in Honey's mind, chief petty officers have lost focus on what's important, leading some to reward some of the wrong behaviors. And then he mentions he calls it bumper sticker stuff about being a chief petty officer. And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing. And you hear that more and more out of a lot of very senior level enlisted leadership, where they're openly criticizing some of the chief's mess culture that does not add any value and does not align with the mission, vision, guiding principles, like this prideful, boastful crap. And I think it's about time the MCPON started like dunking on people about this, because like this shit's gotta go. Like, I'm not saying you can't have like challenge coins and pride shirts, but fuck, man, like, we don't need like a whole car wrap or like your whole rear windshield thing with a giant chief skull on it or whatever. Like, it's too much. And it's like the focus for a lot of people. Yeah. So the other two memos are competency and connections, which I guess were made available to military.com, but not the Navy for some reason. Yeah, I don't know how much more of this I'm gonna even bother quoting or anything, but it's the article itself, and you can find the whole post is on Reddit, and I shared the TED Talk. I'll share the article when I'm done recording this, the military.com article, but it's a very encouraging sign of life. Again, a lot of it is just them saying that they're concerned, essentially. Like, this, there's no plan or action in here at all. There's just these memos. So it's like, I'm cautiously optimistic, but like when he says stuff like this, And even like it's got a quote about Force Master Chief Jason Dunn, most senior enlisted. So he's force for CNIC, it looks like. He said the chief's mess and all sailors have an important role when it comes to supporting each other, and that if we are unable to do that, that is where some of the risks lie. So it's like there's more than one person vocalizing this kind of stuff too, which makes sense because the MCPON's leadership mess is going to support him and his priorities. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I like that he's saying some of the stuff out loud, because it's, in the past, it's been the kind of like criticizing the mess at all has been like taboo. So this is progress, however slight. I hope it's backed up by actual meaningful change, and driving that change is policy, like a policy document. It's gotta happen, and I hope this is the dude to do it. I hope we're not waiting for another MCPON to finally put this stuff in writing, if ever. But yeah, again, the character memo, it was more of the same, less inflammatory things like the mental health thing that I flipped out about, but it was kind of just more of the same. It's general, it's vague, and there's no plan of action. There's no steps or meaningful action. Like the conversations are nice, like he mandated something, which is good, but if this was built on top of a policy document and an actual plan of action, I think it would be a lot more meaningful. I think this topic would be the topic of a conversation if an OpNav was released dictating before the chief season started that thou shalt do the following. This is like, like if we had done a big thing where like people are out like training chiefs on how they're going to facilitate the new version of the chief's induction season, please change initiation. And there's the formal policy document, a master course document, instructor guides, learning objectives, all of it's formalized. And I don't mean it's going to turn the chief season into death by PowerPoint. Calm down. I'm just saying there needs to be formal guardrails through policy. There just has to be. But yeah, I think if these memos and those subsequent conversations that are mandated were built on top of that, it would be far more impactful. And the conversations would be far better because they know this isn't just the whim of another MCPON and he's gonna fade away in like a year and a half, and there'll be a new one with a new set of priorities and more memos. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's no staying power if there's no policy behind it. And sure, instructions can be revised or canceled, but like, it's a lot harder to change that if he had come in swinging and within the first year had changed the chief season as we know it. Most MCPONs aren't going to be ready to hit the undo button as soon as they come into office. Maybe they make some slight changes, they add to it, whatever, but like most of them aren't going to be willing to just roll all that back because of the turmoil that would ensue. Like there's already going to be turmoil when you formalize this stuff, like especially in the Navy Times comment section type, all the older tired people that don't think like me. But here we are. I don't I guess I'm done with this one. This one, not as much meat on the bone, but I like it needs to be talked about, and I think we got some good content in there for everybody just to help add to those discussions. And please, chief selects, when you discuss these memos, be open and honest, like share how you really feel, tell them your real perspectives on these things. Don't just be like a bystander for a discussion amongst the chief's mess. Don't be afraid to vocalize it. Like, you're going to get yelled at anyway. That's the chief season for you. But, yeah, I really hope that those conversations are productive and your voice does matter. You do have a voice and you should use it, and you should like share some of those things. Like I hope Desiree talks about the moral. God, I already forgot the word. Jesus, I need a nap already. But you know what I'm talking about, the concept from earlier. But yeah, I really hope some of those things are shared, like some of that wisdom that is in all of this new wave of chief selects. Share that, open up about it, say the things that you're thinking, because that's what you bring to the mess. Your perspective is unique. Your outlook, the way you analyze things, the way you interact with the world, it's unique to you, and that's what you bring to the mess. So use that. It's powerful. If you want to hit us up, Don't Give Up the Shit Podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Shit Podcast. Or you can DM us on Instagram, Reddit, or Discord at DGUTSPodcast. If you want to support us, you can go to dgutspodcast.com. There's a donate button in the upper right-hand corner of the website. Or you can go to dgutapparel.com, get yourself some naval pride and heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. Or you can go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast and become a patron today. There's 5 tiers, ton of cool benefits. And it really helps. Any of the mechanisms help us pay all these bills and expand the platform because everything costs money. If you can't afford to spend any, though, the best ways to support us is like, share, subscribe, review on all the platforms for all the things. Subscribe on YouTube, share the videos, share the podcast, tag your friends in the social media posts, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook, and all the things, right? Like interact, follow, review us on iTunes and Spotify and all those things, right? Anything you can do like that doesn't cost you a dime, just a little bit of attention and time while you're already presumably engaging with the podcast, and it helps with the algorithms and all the things. It gets the word out organically and doesn't cost us a dime or you a dime. So it's a win-win, and we really, really appreciate it. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship. Hey, shout out to all our level 5 patrons, Victoria Livingood, William McIver, and Mark Galagos. To all our other patrons, we really appreciate your support. Helps to pay all the bills, expand the platform, and we couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel.